Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. I found my fiancé in bed with my own sister. The wedding was still on. Tiana will take your place, my mother declared. I disappeared, became a vice president, and built a new life. 3 years later, they showed up demanding I babysit their children. My answer cost them their house. I was 24 years old. I had a strong career, a successful one. I lived in my own apartment downtown, the kind with the big windows, and I was completely, totally head over heels in love with a man who seemed perfect in every single way. Looking back now, I realize how life was just setting the stage, preparing me for the most devastating plot twist I had ever experienced. My name is Lauren Evans, and this is the story of how I lost everything I thought I wanted, only to find something much more valuable, myself. Devin came into my life like a character straight out of a romance novel. I met him at a charity gala my company was sponsoring. He was charming, handsome, and he had this way of listening to you that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. We had 6 months of what I thought was pure bliss. We could talk for hours. We would sit in my apartment, order takeout, and plan our future together. We dreamed about the life we would build, the places we would travel, his success in finance, his charm, the way he seemed to understand me completely. It all felt like it was meant to be. It is strange how the things that seem the most perfect are often the ones hiding the deepest, ugliest cracks. One night, we were curled up on my couch watching some forgettable movie. I was playing absent-mindedly with a button on his shirt, and I made the decision that would unknowingly unravel my entire world. "I think it is time you met my family," I said, my voice a little quieter than I expected. He looked down at me and smiled. "You think they are ready for me? They are going to adore you," I laughed. "Even my sister will have to admit you are perfect." My sister, Tiana. Tiana is 2 years younger than I am, fresh out of college with a degree she was not really using. She was still living at home with our parents while she figured out her next move, which, as far as I could tell, mostly involved sleeping late and using my father's credit card. We had grown up sharing everything. Secrets, dreams, clothes. We were Lauren and Tiana, the unstoppable duo. Or so I thought. Lately, though, she had become distant. I blamed it on post-graduation stress and the job hunt. I assumed she was feeling a little lost, maybe a little jealous of the life I had built. I was the responsible one, the one who moved out, got the career, paid my own bills. She was the baby, the one my parents always coddled. I remember one Christmas when we were kids. I wanted a specific expensive doll and had saved my allowance for months. Tiana decided she wanted it too at the last minute. She threw a tantrum, and on Christmas morning there it was under the tree, for her. My parents told me, "You are older, Lauren. You understand. Be the bigger person." That was the story of our lives. I was always the bigger person. The family dinner was scheduled for the following weekend. I was a nervous wreck. I spent hours getting ready, methodically applying makeup, changing my outfit 3 times. My hands trembled slightly as I smoothed down my dress. I just wanted them to love him as much as I did. Devin arrived with a bottle of expensive wine for my father and a huge bouquet of lilies for my mother. The moment he walked through the door, my mother's face lit up. "Oh, Lauren," she whispered, cornering me in the kitchen as I was arranging appetizers. Her eyes were shining with approval. "He is absolutely wonderful. So polite, so handsome, and a wonderful job. You did well, honey. You did really well." I felt a rush of pride. I caught Tiana's reflection in the kitchen window. She was leaning against the doorframe, watching Devin talk to our father. Her lips were curled into a little smirk. I took it as petty jealousy. The successful older sister with her perfect life and perfect boyfriend, while she was still sleeping in her childhood bedroom. The evening flowed like honey. It was sweet, smooth, and perfectly orchestrated. My mother and Devin connected, talking about business strategies and market trends. My father could not stop gushing over his professional accomplishments. It was all Devin this and Devin that. Even Tiana, whose initial Ice Queen demeanor had been obvious, seemed to thaw as the night went on. I saw them laughing together by the fireplace. I remember feeling so happy, so relieved. Everyone loves him, I thought. I told myself she was finally warming up, accepting that he was going to be part of the family. As we were leaving, my mother pulled me into a tight hug, her perfume wrapping around me. "Do not let this one get away, my love," she whispered. Those words would come back to haunt us all. A few weeks later, we were discussing marriage. It was not a grand gesture. There was no bended knee in a fancy restaurant. It just came up while we were making pasta in my apartment, wine glasses full, music playing softly. I could get used to this, Devin said, stirring the sauce. Me too, I said, leaning against the counter. He looked up, his eyes suddenly serious. What if we did for real? My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I mean, what if we just did this forever and that was it? We decided right there in my kitchen, over a pot of bolognese. We could do it in 6 months. Nothing too fancy, just close family and friends. A beautiful, elegant, simple wedding. My parents practically exploded with joy when we told them. My mother was scrolling inspiration boards before I even finished my sentence. They immediately offered to split the wedding costs with Devin's parents. It was generous. We had a small dinner at my parents' house to celebrate the engagement. I wore a new white dress. I had a ring on my finger. I felt like I was floating. Tiana sat through the entire dinner, pushing her food around her plate. She barely said a word. She kept tapping on her phone under the table, occasionally exhaling these little huffing sounds that everyone politely ignored. Looking back, those were not just annoyed noises. They were warning sirens. I just did not want to hear them. The next 2 months became a blur of wedding preparations. Every spare moment was consumed by decisions that felt monumental at the time. What shade of ivory for the invitations? Peonies or roses? What kind of cake? It was all flowers, cake tastings, endless venue visits, and vendor meetings. I was exhausting myself trying to balance my demanding job with the wedding planning. I was staying late at the office and waking early for appointments. I was tired, but I was happy. I was planning the rest of my life. That Tuesday started like any other day. I had a 7 a.m. meeting with the florist to finalize the centerpieces. I planned to work late to get ahead, so I could take Friday off for my dress fitting. Around 2 in the afternoon, a splitting headache hit me like a sledgehammer. It was blinding. I could not even look at my computer screen. My boss, Rhonda Lewis, took one look at my pale face and pointed to the door. "Lauren, you look terrible," she said, not unkindly. "Go home. Whatever it is, it can wait until tomorrow." I was grateful. On the drive home, I thought about surprising Devin. He usually worked from home on Tuesdays. Maybe we could order takeout, tackle some of the wedding. RSVPs together. A quiet night, just the two of us. The drive home was slow. The pain throbbed behind my eyes. I fumbled with my keys at the door, my hands shaking a little. The apartment was silent when I unlocked the door. Dark too. The curtains were drawn. "Devin," I called out. No answer. I figured he was on a call. He often took them in the bedroom for better sound quality. I remember tiptoeing down the hall, not wanting to disturb him. Then I heard them. Muffled sounds. Voices. A low murmur, and then a laugh. A high-pitched, familiar laugh. It was not his. My blood went cold. The doorknob was cold under my fingers as I pushed the door open. Time did not just stop. It shattered. There in our bed, my bed, with the sheets I had picked out when we first moved in together, were Devin and Tiana, my sister and my fiancé, tangled together like they belonged there. Tiana did not even flinch. She just looked at me, almost bored, like I had interrupted her during some mundane chore, like I was the one in the wrong place. Devin scrambled out of bed, the sheet tangled around his waist. His face was a mask of panic. "Lauren, I can explain. It is not what it looks like. It is not what it looks like." My voice came out, but it did not sound like me. It was flat, empty. Something inside me snapped. Not with a bang, not with a scream, but with a chilling, terrifying calmness that even scared me. I did not argue. I did not ask questions. I turned around, walked to the closet, and started grabbing his clothes, his expensive suits, the shirts I had ironed for him, the jeans I bought him for his birthday. I gathered armful after armful. "Lauren, what are you doing?" Devin yelled, following me into the living room, still trying to cover himself. "Please, let us talk about this." I walked straight to our third-floor balcony. I slid the glass door open. "Lauren, no," he shouted. Too late. I watched with an icy, cold satisfaction as his clothes sailed through the air. They scattered across the parking lot below like confetti from a celebration gone wrong. A suit jacket landed on a car. "Out," I said. My voice carried a stillness I did not know I possessed. "Both of you." I turned back inside. Tiana was standing in the hallway wrapped in my Egyptian cotton sheets. The ones I had splurged on because Devin said they reminded him of a fancy hotel. "Lauren, please," she started, her voice finally losing that bored edge and turning into a whine. It just happened. Out! Now! The sight of her shuffling toward the door, trying to maintain some dignity while draped in the evidence of their betrayal, would have been comical if my heart were not being shredded. I slammed the door behind them. I locked the deadbolt. Then I slid down, my back against the wood, finally crumpling on the floor. The setting sun painted shadows across the walls of our living room, turning everything unfamiliar, just like my life. I do not know how long I sat there. Hours, maybe. The apartment was silent. The silence was deafening. When my phone finally rang and my mother's name flashed on the screen, some small, foolish part of me felt relief. Mothers are supposed to be your safe harbor in a storm. They are supposed to hold you while you cry and tell you everything will be all right. But life is not a movie. I answered, my voice raw. Hello. How dare you? That was the first thing she said. Not, are you all right? Not, what happened? Just, how dare you humiliate your sister like that? What? I whispered, throwing his clothes off the balcony, making her leave in a sheet. What were you thinking, Lauren? What will the neighbors think? The laugh that escaped my throat did not sound like me. It was high and hysterical. What was I thinking? She was in my bed with my fiancé. You are always so dramatic, Lauren, my mother interrupted. That was when I found my own voice. A strength born from pure rage. The wedding is off, I said, my voice shaking. It is over. I will contact the vendors tomorrow. No, you will not. Her tone shifted. It became unnaturally calm, like the air before a storm. What do you mean, no, I will not? The wedding is off. The wedding is still on, she said, her voice firm. Your father and I just talked to Devin's parents. We talked to Devin and to Tiana. You what? The wedding will proceed as planned, she continued, as if discussing the weather. Tiana will take your place. Have you ever been hit so hard you look for blood? That is what I did. 5 simple words. Tiana will take your place. And I actually looked down at my chest expecting to see a wound. Something this painful, this unbelievable, surely had to leave a mark. You cannot be serious, I whispered, my free hand pressing against my sternum. That is insane. You cannot just swap brides. We have paid for half of this wedding, my mother snapped. Devin's parents have paid their half. Everything is booked and paid for. The venue, the caterer, the flowers. We are not throwing all that money away just because you are having a tantrum. A tantrum? Every word felt like it was being ripped from my throat. My fiancé and my sister were in my bed. How is this a tantrum? You need to grow up and stop being so emotional about everything, she sighed. These things happen. The line went dead. That night exists in my memory as fragments, like a shattered mirror. I remember crying until there were no more tears, just dry heaving sobs that hurt my ribs. I remember screaming into pillows until my throat felt like sandpaper. I remember throwing up twice, my body physically rejecting the betrayal. The morning sun found me curled up on the cold bathroom floor, still in yesterday's clothes. Dried tears stained my cheeks. My head was pounding, not from the headache, but from crying. My phone buzzed on the tile around 9 a.m. My cousin Malcolm's name lit up the screen. Just seeing his name brought the first tiny hint of warmth I had felt since the day before. Malcolm was always the neutral one in the family, the steady one. I answered. Hey, I croaked. Lauren. His voice was hesitant, carrying the weight of unwanted news. I just got off the phone with your mom. A long pause stretched between us. I could hear him breathing like he did not want to say the next part. What is she saying? I asked. The bathroom tile felt even colder under me. She is telling everyone, she is telling the whole family that Devin broke up with you because he fell in love with Tiana, he said softly. I closed my eyes. Of course she is. It is worse, Malcolm said, his voice quieter, like he was trying to cushion the blow. She is saying it was all very civil and mature, but that you are not handling it well. That you had a total meltdown, threw his clothes off the balcony, and kicked them both out. I started to laugh. That same hollow, ugly sound from the night before. A meltdown? Yes, I suppose I did. Lauren, he continued, they are telling everyone the wedding is still on. Just with Tiana in your place. I pressed my forehead against the cool wall. My entire family was being turned against me. The story was being rewritten while the pain was still fresh. My parents were painting me as the villain, the unstable one, the dramatic one, while they shielded my sister and Devin. A new feeling burned through me. It was not just sadness. It was fury, but not the wild, destructive kind. This was cold. This was controlled. There on that bathroom floor, still wearing yesterday's clothes and last night's tears, I made my decision. I would not give them the satisfaction of a public breakdown. I would not cry or plead. I would simply disappear. I would erase them from my life as completely as they had erased me from theirs. The next morning, I walked into Rhonda's office before she had even had her first cup of coffee. I had spent 2 hours on my appearance. I covered the dark circles with concealer, styled my hair, and put on my most expensive, tailored pantsuit. I stood tall despite the exhaustion in my bones. Rhonda looked up, surprised. "Lauren, you are in. I thought you would be taking a few days. How is the headache?" "I need more work," I said, my voice firm. No tremor. She blinked. "More work? You're already carrying a full load. And with the wedding." "There is no wedding," I interrupted. The words tasted less bitter than before. They just tasted like facts. "The wedding is off. And I need to be busier. Much busier. The most challenging projects you have, the ones no one else can crack. I want them." Something in my expression must have convinced her. She did not ask what happened. She just opened her desk drawer and pulled out a thick file. "The Morales account," she said, sliding it across the desk. "No one has been able to solve it for 6 months. It is a nightmare. It is yours if you want it." "I will have a proposal by Friday," I said. That weekend, I found a new apartment, a small studio across town. It was half the size of my old place, but it was mine, and it held no ghosts. I changed my phone number. I blocked every family member on social media. My mother, my father, Tiana, all my aunts and uncles who had started sending, "Are you all right?" messages that I knew were really requests for gossip. I threw myself into work as if it were the only thing keeping me afloat. The Morales account, I solved it in 2 weeks. I found an error in their logistics chain that saved them millions. The next major project, one everyone said was impossible, I completed a month ahead of schedule. Every challenge Rhonda threw at me, I conquered. I worked 14-hour days. I took online courses at night to earn a new certification. I studied our competition like my survival depended on it. In a way, it did. Working was the only thing that kept me from thinking. From picturing Tiana walking down the aisle in the dress I was supposed to wear. From imagining them living in the house we had planned to buy. From imagining my parents beaming with pride, holding their good daughter, while telling everyone, such a shame about Lauren. She just could not handle things. A year passed, a blur of spreadsheets, presentations, and late-night flights. I was promoted to senior manager. My drive was fueled by the need to prove something, mostly to myself. Another year passed. I became director of operations. By year 3, I was the youngest vice president in the company's history. My salary tripled. The tiny studio became a sprawling loft in the center of the city. The kind of place I used to walk past and dream about. Only now I bought it myself. Every time I walked through those doors, pride surged through me. Not the shallow kind that comes from impressing others, but the deep satisfaction of knowing exactly what I was capable of. I started traveling. At first, it was weekend trips to places like Charleston or Chicago, just to see who I was away from everything familiar. Then came the bigger adventures. I went to New Orleans in the spring. I sat alone in sidewalk cafes, writing in my journal, eating beignets, and feeling truly at peace for the first time in years. I went to Seattle in the fall, losing myself in the rain and the bookstores and the quiet hum of a city that was not mine. I went to the Florida Keys in the summer, and the warm, clear water seemed to wash away the last thin layers of bitterness from my heart. I posted pictures of it all on social media, not to prove anything to anyone, but to document my journey, my physical journey and my emotional one. Each picture was a milestone in my transformation from someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone's almost wife, to simply myself. 3 years. 3 whole years without hearing their voices, without sitting at their table, without knowing anything about their lives. Except for one fact I could not avoid. Tiana had married Devin. Malcolm had mentioned it casually during one of our rare text exchanges. He was probably testing the waters, waiting to see if I would react. I did not. The news landed like a pebble in a still pond, a small ripple that faded quickly. I was happy. Not the performative happiness I thought I had with Devin, which I now realized was all about pleasing others. This was deeper, a contentment born from knowing exactly who I was, what I had survived, and what I could do. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but the area code was from my hometown. Something, intuition, or just a sense of inevitability, made me answer. "Hello." A pause. "Lauren." I froze. I would know that voice anywhere. "Is that you, honey?" It was my mother. Her voice was sugary, like we had spoken yesterday. What do you want? I kept my voice neutral, the same tone I used in difficult meetings. The artificial sweetness cracked slightly. Well, your father and we need to talk to you. Could you come over to the house, please? We have been having some serious discussions about everything. About you. I should have hung up. Instead, I heard myself ask, when? Her voice brightened. This Saturday around 6. I will make your favorite dinner. She hung up before I could reply. The week crawled by. I buried myself in work, trying not to think about it, but the appointment on my calendar stared back at me every time I opened it. When Saturday arrived, I spent an hour getting ready. I was not dressing for a family dinner. I was putting on armor. My carefully styled hair, my tailored dress, my best watch. It was not to impress them. It was a visual reminder that I was no longer the person they had broken. I drove my new Lexus slowly through my old neighborhood. Memories surfaced at every turn. The park where Tiana and I used to play, the corner where I had my first kiss. Everything looked the same, but smaller, less significant. When I pulled up to my parents' house, I barely recognized it. The place looked tired, worn down. The lawn, once my mother's pride, was overgrown. Weeds pushed through the flower beds. The paint on the siding was peeling. The front steps were crumbling. I did not bother knocking. This was not a social visit. Inside, the smell of the same vanilla candle hit me. The furniture was the same. The pictures on the walls were mostly the same, except the ones with me in them had quietly disappeared. They were all in the living room, posed like a strange family portrait. My parents looked older and more tired than I remembered. Devin stood by the fireplace, heavier, with dark circles under his eyes. And Tiana stood beside him with her hand on his shoulder. She looked almost the same, just a little fuller around the waist. 2 toddlers clung to Devin's legs, one around 2 years old, the other barely walking. I waited for the pain, the rage, the old humiliation. But there was nothing. They were strangers to me now. Tiana's eyes swept over me, my dress, my watch, my calm face. Envy colored her voice. Well, look at you. You look good. I smiled, all teeth and no warmth. Amazing what you can accomplish when you are not busy stealing your sister's fiancé. Lauren, my mother said sharply. Please, let us just sit down and have a nice dinner. The dinner was surreal. I picked at the overcooked pot roast. I was not hungry. The children were the only ones making real noise. The younger one banged a spoon against the high chair, and the older whined about vegetables. My mother cleared her throat. We have been following your success, she said, her voice coated with forced brightness. Those pictures you post. Your apartment looks beautiful. Right in the heart of downtown. I took a deliberate sip of water and said nothing. And your job, she continued, glancing at Tiana, who stared at her plate. Vice President. We are all so impressed with how well you are doing. I set my fork down. Why am I here? She blinked. What do you mean, honey? We just wanted to see you. No, I said quietly. Why am I really here? Because it is not to discuss my social media posts. The bright mask crumbled. My mother sighed and looked at my father. Well, you see, things have been a bit difficult lately, she said. Calvin, why do you not explain? My father looked worn down. I lost my job 3 months ago, he said. Budget cuts. Downsizing. I have had to pick up extra shifts at the hospital just to keep up with the bills, my mother added. The mortgage, the utilities, everything is so expensive. And with Tiana staying home with the children, they are living on just Devin's salary. With 2 little ones and another on the way. She gestured at Tiana's small bump. What does any of this have to do with me? I asked, even though I already knew. The sheer audacity still stunned me. My mother's face brightened slightly, as though she had arrived at the solution. We were thinking Tiana really needs to find a job to help out, but childcare is so expensive. And since you have such a flexible position, I just stared at her, waiting for the joke. It did not come. You are joking, I said. Lauren, this is serious, my father snapped. No, I said slowly. You are seriously suggesting that I should what? Babysit. You have that big apartment, my mother continued, ignoring me. And I am sure you could work from home some days. The children are very well behaved. The older child chose that moment to throw his cup across the room and scream. This is a joke, I said. I looked around the table, my mother's desperate hope, my father's tired anger, Tiana's sullen entitlement, Devin's sagging shame. You are really sitting here, after what you did, asking me to babysit my sister and ex-fiancé's children? My father cleared his throat. If you are not comfortable with that arrangement, he said, his eyes flicking to my watch. You could help pay for proper child care. Your salary is good. You could afford it. I leaned back in my chair. They had invited me there, cooked my old favorite meal, staged this performance, all to ask me to become their unpaid child care or open my wallet for them. No, I said. The word dropped like a stone. The room went silent. I stood, placing my napkin on the table. My voice was as cold as the air in that room. Absolutely not. Lauren, my mother began. I will not be their babysitter, I continued. And I will not be their automatic teller machine. How dare you be so selfish after all we have done for you? She shouted, her mask of concern finally slipping. All you have done for me? I asked quietly. You ungrateful child, my father yelled, slamming his hand on the table. The dishes rattled. You sit there in your designer clothes, living in your fancy apartment, while your sister can barely afford diapers. A strange calm settled over me. My sister's financial situation, I said, looking straight at Tiana, is not my problem. Lauren, please, Tiana whimpered, eyes filling with tears. The children. You made your choice, Tiana, I said, cutting her off. You wanted him. You got him. You wanted this life. You got it. I turned to my parents. And you chose. You all made your choices 3 years ago. You chose her. You chose him. You made it very clear where your loyalties were. You picked your side. Now you have to live with those decisions. I grabbed my purse and walked out of the dining room to a chorus of angry, panicked voices. Lauren, you get back here, my father shouted. You are abandoning your family, my mother shrieked. I could hear Tiana crying about her children as I walked down the driveway. Their voices grew fainter with every step. I got in my car, checked my reflection, saw that I was perfectly composed, and drove away. I did not look back. The next morning, I woke to chaos online. Not on my personal number. They did not have that. On social media. My mother had posted a long, public message about her heartless daughter, who had forgotten her roots. How I had abandoned my struggling family in their time of need. She painted a picture of a poor, exhausted sister with 2 small babies and a rich, selfish vice president's sister who would not even lift a finger to help. She did not mention why I was no longer in their lives. The comments rushed in. How could she do that to her own sister? Those poor babies. Money really changes people. These were from relatives who knew exactly what happened 3 years ago. They had watched the story unfold and still chose to believe this version. I did not respond. I did not explain myself. I sat there with my coffee and blocked them. Every single one. Aunt Loretta, Uncle Leon, Cousin Kia. Gone. But my family was not finished. I was in the middle of a huge meeting with our biggest client, negotiating a major contract, when my assistant slipped into the conference room, her face pale. Ms. Evans, she whispered, I am so sorry to interrupt, but your family is in the lobby. My blood ran cold. My family? Your sister has 2 crying children with her, she said. And your parents are demanding to speak with Mr. Carter, our chief executive officer. They had brought their chaos to my job. I excused myself, my expression calm, and walked to the lobby. My heels echoed on the marble floor. There they were, my parents arguing with the receptionist, Tiana with the children, both screaming, while people watched and recorded on their phones. We demand to speak to whoever is in charge, my father was shouting. She cannot treat her family this way. We will see what her boss thinks. I walked over to our head of security, Daryl King, who was already approaching. Mr. King, I said quietly, those people are not permitted in this building. Please remove them. But Ms. Evans, they say they are your. They are not permitted in this building, I repeated, my voice like steel. Please remove them now. I watched as Mr. King and another guard escorted them out, their voices echoing off the walls. You cannot do this to us, Lauren. We are your family. I did not watch them leave. I went back to the conference room, apologized to my client for the disruption, and finished the meeting. We closed the deal. They still did not stop. Somehow, they found my new address. I came home one night to find them outside my building. My parents arguing with the doorman, Tiana holding the children like props, trying to get someone to let them in. We are not leaving until you help your sister, my mother yelled as I called building security. They started showing up randomly, pounding on my door, shouting about family obligations. I changed my routes, varied my schedule, and still they pushed. When they started contacting my colleagues, finding them on professional networking sites and sending messages like, please talk to Lauren, her family is in desperate need. I knew quiet avoidance was no longer enough. I called Malcolm. My voice shook slightly as I asked for help. I have tried talking to them, he said. Your mother will not listen. She is determined. I do not need a mediator, I said. I need a lawyer. I know someone, he replied. She handles complicated family cases. Her name is attorney Denise Parker. Denise was exactly what I needed, tough, practical, unbothered by drama. She listened to everything and then nodded once. We can fix this, she said. But we need to be precise. She helped me organize everything. Screenshots of every message and post, security footage from my building and my office, statements from my assistant, from Mr. King, from the doorman. A list of every attempt to contact me after I told them to stop. We are filing for a restraining order, Denise explained. They will be legally prohibited from coming near you, your home, or your workplace. No contact by any means. And given the impact on your work, we are also requesting $15,000 in damages for emotional distress and reputational harm. I agreed. I was tired. I was not prepared for how they would look in court. Under the fluorescent lights, they seemed smaller, less powerful. Tiana had left the children at home. Instead, she cried on cue when the judge looked at her. My parents appeared confused, as though they did not understand how their choices had brought them there. Their defense was weak. We were just trying to help our son-in-law reconnect with family, their lawyer tried to argue. We were worried about her, my mother sniffled. We only wanted her to see her niece and nephew, my father muttered. The judge was not impressed. She reviewed the evidence silently, her expression hardening. The harassment is clear and repeated, she said. This is more than a family disagreement. This is a pattern. The restraining order is granted in full, she declared. The defendants are to have no contact with Ms. Evans by any means, direct or indirect, for a period of 3 years. I let out a breath I did not realize I was holding. Furthermore, the judge continued, the court awards the requested damages of $15,000 to Ms. Evans, to be paid jointly by the defendants. This is ridiculous, my mother shouted, jumping to her feet. We are her parents. We have rights. You ungrateful child, my father yelled, pointing at me. Tiana dissolved into loud sobs about my babies. The judge's gavel came down hard. Silence. One more outburst, and I will hold all 3 of you in contempt. She paused. Given your behavior in this courtroom, I am adding a $5,000 fine for each defendant, payable to the court. That was 6 months ago. The restraining order works. They cannot contact me. They cannot come near my home or my office. They cannot post about me online. The damages and the fines, $15,000 to me, $15,000 to the court, hit them hard. Malcolm told me they had to take out another mortgage on that deteriorating house to pay it. I do not know what they are doing now. I do not know if Tiana and Devin are still together. I do not know how the children are growing up. I do not know if my parents have learned anything from all of this. And the best part is that I do not need to know. Every morning, I wake up in my quiet apartment. Sunlight comes through the floor-to-ceiling windows, lighting up the city I claimed for myself. The silence is no longer lonely. It is full of possibility. My home is not defined by who is missing from it, but by what I have built inside it. Sometimes, when I drink my coffee on the balcony and watch the city wake up below, I think about the young woman crying on her bathroom floor years ago. I wish I could tell her that the end of her dream would become the beginning of something much better. My life now is not what I planned when I was that naive 24-year-old. It is better. Every decision I make is mine. Every accomplishment is mine. Every smile is genuine, not a mask worn to keep the peace. I learned that family is not always about blood. It can be about the friends who show up when you need them, the colleagues who stand beside you, and the people who quietly believe in you when your own relatives do not. The betrayal that almost destroyed me became the foundation on which I built something unshakable, myself. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.